Hey guys, how you doing? This is OneBit, back for another Dota cast. This is a Wisp game, aka IO, now since they've changed its name. And I think I did a pretty good job in this game of showing you how you use Gank, or use IO to be a effective ganker. Fortunately for me, early on, I was with a really good and smart lane partner. Generally, you want to be matched up as IO with somebody that understands the concept of his Tether and his Relocate. And unfortunately, our carry was not. Our Morphling kind of sucked in that department. And there were a couple of times when I was tethered to him and I relocated to an area and then he wasn't with me because he broke the tether and it ended up getting me killed. So I do have kind of I would say high deaths for myself, but that's just simply because of somebody that didn't understand the concept of Wisp. But I think I was able to effectively do enough ganking and do some really good relocates and tether stuns, etc. that I think that the game overall is a good showing for Wisp. I'm going to go ahead and start it up now. I basically started with no regen, which is fine with Wisp. You would generally think that that's kind of bad, but as long as you have a partner that understands the way Tether works, basically somebody else who buys regen is enough, because any regen you have is shared. Now, whether he knows it or not, whether he gives you the regen or whether he just keeps it for himself, it doesn't really matter as long as you pick up Tether early on. Anytime he pops regen, you can tether to him and the regen is then shared between the two of you. So you don't really need to start with regen with Wisp. As long as one of the two of you has regen on them, then you can use Tether to share the regen. So it's fine to start with none on Wisp. I don't remember exactly which boots I go for. I'm a big fan of Tranquil now. I feel that the Tranquil boots allow him to have a heal in lane early on. I think Arcane's really good as well, although this Rubik, he had Arcane boots, so we kind of doubled up on Arcane in this game, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Generally speaking, as far as Wisp abilities go, Tether, which I went over briefly, it basically, if you tether to somebody else, you share your HP regen, you share your mana regen. So if you're getting using mana regen items or HP regen items, it's shared between the two of you. You can see he popped to clarity. I'm getting the benefits of the clarity too, as long as the tether lasts. And you also are able to mini stun any target that you sweep over the sweep over with the tether. Yeah, fortunately I was pretty low on health and I ended up buying the farm there, but that's okay. I don't give up too many of those early on.
Missing bottom.
It is until late in the game where I end up dying because of initiations that unfortunately are not followed up on with other teammates. Let me just fast forward through this pause bit here.
My veiled sisters missing middle.
Radiant's top tower's taking hits.
I have no idea what's going on here. Kind of just sitting there.
Ah, lovely.
I don't know if I had to stand up and go do something or what, but I'm just sitting behind tower. I think maybe I had to walk away from a keyboard. That's why I was just sitting there for a while. Yeah, if he wasn't as low, we would have probably been able to go in the pudge and take him out. Basically, when you make Wisp, the general build, or like the more standard build, I won't call it the general, but the more standard build is that you maximize your tether first. The reason you want to maximize your tether first is to increase your mini stun, which can help you for ganking purposes. When I'm laning early on with Wisp, though, sometimes I like to get some levels in Wisp, or actually Spirits, I believe it's called. Something Spirits, yeah, Spirits. So that I'm able to harass early on. I mean, obviously Tether is pretty inexpensive mana-wise, so it's much more mana-intensive to maximize Spirits, because as you get them, they're going up in cost. But it is a nice little rain harass early on. So it's up to you, but Tether is generally, that's the general rule, that you maximize that first, so that you can increase that mini stun from 0.75 all the way up to 2.25, where it becomes a effective stun. You also get a movement speed bonus from tethering to somebody. And you can travel a great distance. If you're behind somebody, or like in an area where you can possibly get ganked, you can press tether towards the closest enemy, and it has a really long latch on distance, and it will just kind of drag you towards that individual. And you might see that a couple times when I'm here playing the game. So you can actually tether to somebody that's quite a far distance away. And it has two bonuses. One, it can be a quick and easy method to escape from a dangerous situation, but it can also be used so that, say, an enemy is between you and another opponent, but you're kind of far out and the enemy doesn't see you. You can, say, like, hide behind a tree line and tether across, and you know, be able to gank somebody. You know, for instance, let's say I wanted to relocate to the bottom lane. I could relocate behind the trees and then just tether across, you know, towards a friendly target, and then if an enemy's in between, once the tether struck them, they would be stuck, and then I could pop spirits and take them out before I was relocated back. But fortunately with this Rubik, we're able to do quite a bit of ganking. Although we get kind of deprived early on because of this Invoker and Pudge combination, which requires us to be very cautious about our placement in the lane.
No breaking down the radiant structures like this.
I might fast forward a little bit through this, because not much happens until I get relocate. We're just kind of playing cautiously. We can't really push into jungle with Pudge up here, and Invoker. I almost have relocate at this point. Another thing that you might not immediately think about when you're playing Wisp is his ability to relocate back to the fountain. So if you're in lane and you wanted to, you're pretty low, you can always tether up somebody and relocate them back to the fountain, recharge all your health and mana, and then instantly appear back in your lane. So you can use it to gank. You can also use it defensively as a means of gathering back your mana and being prepared for the lane. Yeah. Go ahead and fast forward this a bit.
Double kill.
All right.
Double damage.
Now this is when Wisp gets fun, once he gets relocate. I went to pick up my boots as well, and I believe we go on somebody almost immediately here. Yeah. Second it went up, I saw a target, and target opportunity is behind our the tower down there.
Radiant's top tower's hurt.
And we pick them off. And that really is what Wisp is all about. See somebody out of position and taking them down with Relocate. Now, fortunately, I have somebody that has a stun with me. I think a good lane partner for Wisp would probably be somebody like Lion, Sand King, Rubik. Somebody has a hard stun that is instantaneous. You know, it has to be like an instant stun, something that can either CC them and pull them out of the fight. You know, I wouldn't go with somebody like, say, a Leshrac that has, like, he has a stun, but it's a time going. You want something that's like, you know, at the click of a finger. Also, probably, I don't know if Sand King would be as preferable as, say, Lion or Rubik, simply because his requires him to kind of dash forward. And there's a potential that, depending on the distance that he goes, he can break the tether. Now, you can reapply the tether, but of course, that's, you know, based on if you have the mana to do it. And a lot of times you might not have the time, you know, between the time that you have only like a few seconds before you have to relocate back to your original position.
Radiant's bottom tower seen better days.
So it's only like a 12 seconds. So yeah, okay, we went on this guy as well. I died in that, unfortunately, but
Bottom tower ain't a pretty sight right now.
probably if I went behind the tree lines, we would have had a different result. And also if Sniper had moved up earlier instead of just standing back, he should have moved ahead the second he saw us relocate down there, instead of playing so cautiously. He could have probably picked off line when he was low health if he had moved up.
Illusion.
But anyway, getting back to what was the point I was trying to make. But I had a brain fart. I can't remember what I was trying to say. But anyway. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. You probably want somebody that their stuns are not necessarily movement dependent, just simply because you don't want them to break the tether, and you might not have enough mana to retether. You know, depending on what you use when you immediately get in lane, you're probably going to pop spirits at least to do some damage. Another neat thing is that the person that you relocate there with is not necessarily the person that you have to relocate back with. So I can swap people in lanes. I can, for instance, bring Rubik, like I did in this example, and I stay tethered to him the entire time. But if I wanted to, I could break the tether and tether up to Sniper, and when I relocated back, I would bring Sniper to the top lane. So there's a lot of neat little tricks that you can do with Wisp. He's kind of a very fun hero that, unfortunately, he's so dependent on your team knowing his mechanics that he is a difficult hero to play in pubs. Which is why I'm glad I got this good Rubik that kind of knows his mechanics and is competent, you know, because there's so many people, like, for instance, the Morphling that we play with in this game, that just don't get it and constantly break tether, that if you're not with the right person, he's pretty much useless. So I have quite a few like completely horrible Wisp games, and a lot of it, you know, unfortunately, is the team that you're stuck with, you know, because if they break the tether and you relocate in on 2-3 enemies that they could have potentially stunned and they're not with you, you're dead. So it's very easy to feed with Wisp. And just finding the exact right spot to relocate to
Dire structures looking fortified.
is part of the fun with him.
The Dire best do something about that bottom tower.
Where are you going?
See, I'm kind of scouting around trying to find which is the best option, and
Come on,
Yeah.
sprites.
Looks like Dire's bottom tower got disowned.
it's all about having the right person with you. See, we could have gone on that Invoker, but he would have been under the tower. it's not as optimal of a situation, whereas those guys were just hanging out mid. So went on them, got a kill. Good stuff. Now, as far as build goes, definitely you want to get an urn as early as possible if you're going to be... yeah, she's mad about wards. Although wards aren't really going to save you from Wisp/IO because you can't really ward the relocate. He's just going to appear right next to you, and I mean, you're going to see the mark on the ground where he's going to appear, but other than that, a ward's not going to save you from him. But which makes him a really deadly ganker, more so than almost any other ganker in the game. Yeah, and there's a situation where the person broke Tether. It either broke or maybe I had it on a little too long and I miscalculated the timing of it. So I'm going to end up coming back and, yeah, being kind of stuck out in the middle. I don't recall which happened. It could have been that I just I didn't time it right and I had it on too long, because that can happen too if you tether too early and your tether expires prior to you relocating. Then it'll break, and then that can be bad for the other person as well if it expires. Let's say when you've arrived at the other side, because sometimes you'll want to like fight for a little bit and see if you can take the fight that you've landed in. And sometimes having that tether is really good, because then if it's a losing battle, the both of you will be able to get out of there and leave. But if it's if the tether broke, then you're basically leaving your teammate over there, and he's going to be feeding. So it's very easy to feed with Wisp. Of course, it's very easy to troll with Wisp, which I'm not going to lie, I've done it myself. If you want to troll people, if people are being particularly douchey to you, you can always just take them for a ride and dump them in the enemy's fountain. And I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of fun. Wouldn't really advise that. Probably gonna get reported if you do that, but hey, sometimes they deserve it.
Radiant's bottom tower's seen better days.
I also illustrated there the fact that you don't always have to relocate to the other side of the map. Just be aware of that. Don't worry about
bottom tower's seen better days.
Like the idea that, oh, I have to appear. I have to relocate like to a completely different spot. You know, it's just the matter of you getting a catching somebody unaware. You know. Or getting behind them or getting close to them, not only with your abilities, your tether and the stun and the wisp, but also with the abilities of the other person. You know, because I got Rubik that I'm tethered to. You know, he can levitate somebody. So just a very short distance teleport or chasing somebody down using the tether and the relocate to, say, teleport just ahead of where they're running towards is another great thing that you can do with him. So don't be afraid to do those kind of short distance relocates. Yeah, like what I'm doing here. Again, I probably just mistimed that though. I should have actually done it behind the tower. And if Rubik hadn't broken the stun and I had placed it a little bit better, we could have probably picked up Pudge there. Because he could have levitated him and then the Wisp would have finished him off. Although there was a anti-mage behind the tower, we could have probably still pulled something off.
Do something about that bottom tower.
Let's see. Here is just a little bit of disorganization, because we could have definitely picked off that PA if Sniper was paying attention. He could have probably finished her with his ulti if he had concentrated and maybe gotten a couple mini stuns on her, because then she wouldn't have been able to port out onto a creep, which is probably what she did.
Guess what's happening to Dyer's bottom
Because she
tower?
doesn't have just a strict teleport, she actually has to get onto something. She has to port onto something, so she wouldn't have been able to get into a creep if we had mini stunned her, and then Sniper could have probably finished her off, but yeah, unfortunately we have a not quite efficient Pudge.
No breaking through the Dyer
No.
structures for now.
I think I was trying to relocate.
Radiant's mid tower could use a hand.
At this point I was paying attention. I don't know if I was going to go mid. Yeah, I was thinking mid. I was going to try to get this guy mid, but I was a little cautious with it. I should have done it to the opposite side of the river, and we could have probably picked him off.
Hell's gates swing
Trouble brewing at Radiant's bottom tower.
Another thing I didn't do quite as much in this game is in order to hit somebody with your spirits.
Pretty sight right now.
Yeah. I was trying to just tether him and get him out of the fight, but he went back and fought it.
Trouble brewing at Radiant's bottom tower.
But apparently that was a good thing because he was able to pick off somebody else. But what I was going to say is one of the things that I don't do quite so much in this game, but that you can do, is that you can... actually, there's two things. There's one, you can actually travel through terrain with Tether. For instance, I'm on, say, one side of the tree line or one side of a river. You can actually tether and cross over terrain.
The Dyer disown their top tower.
So similar to how people can blink, you can travel uphill terrain and things like that with your tether. So be aware of that as well. Or come from high ground to low ground or low ground to high ground. You can do things like that with tether. And another thing you can do is by constantly fluctuating between, say, a very close tether and an open tether, you, yeah. And that's an example of him breaking the tether and getting me killed. He would have ended up behind those guys. He could have gushed across them, and we could have probably made something happen, but he broke the tether and got me killed.
killing spree. Double kill.
We might have possibly killed like all three of those guys, but instead he just got me killed and killed one. But anyway, what I was going to say is by fluctuating the distance between, say, a closed tether and an open, you can, or not a closed tether, but a closed spirits and a wide spirits, you can kind of pick off those guys that are moving back and forth in distance. So sometimes like you'll get in a position where somebody is like kind of close to you, but they're not at the exact range. So you can kind of just switch between the close and the distant, and as they're slowly moving out and in, they'll be able to constantly hit those people that are kind of in that in-between range. So be aware of that too, that you can kind of like spam back and forth between the distances in order to hit people that might not be at the exact right range that you're trying to pick off with your spirits. Yeah, you can see me kind of latch onto him and fly close. I was hoping that Lion was going to get close. Yeah, you see me, I closed it up a little bit there to get him closer.
Dyer's mid tower could use a little
But he
help.
picked him off before I needed to widen it again. Another thing I could have done, see how I latched onto him? I could have stood up there and waited on the high ground, because I was hoping that PA was going to jump on somebody, and then whoever she jumped on, I could tether to them, and then the tether, once it hit the other person, would have instantly stunned her. I think I might end up dying here. I'm not quite sure what happens. Yeah, I do.
Stricken out.
Radiant's top tower's hurt.
So I'm going to close this up. But unfortunately, Pudge picks me off before I can do anything. And I was looking for, when I panned up the camera, I was looking for Enchantress, because if I was able to tether her, it would have yanked me out of Pudge's range, and I might have been able to survive, but unfortunately, Rot finished me off before that happened.
Guess what's happening to Dire's bottom tower? Radiant's top tower's hurting.
And Enchantress is getting mobbed, and I believe she gets killed there.
Dire's bottom tower's getting the business.
Engaging a little smack talk.
The Dire best do something about that bottom tower.
Let's see. Oh yeah, let me just fast forward through this.
Where are you going?
Is able to tether stun Lion there. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. When I crossed over him, I was able to save him and stun her at the same time. I was able to pick her off. And now I'm looking for somebody that's across. Now, I could have tethered over to Morphling. And if I tethered over to Morphling, I would have stunned the guy that he was attacking. So that's probably the one thing I could have done there a little bit better. And if I had the closed spirits like I have right now, when it starts, they start at like a medium range, and then you can actually press to make them even closer to you. If I had like closed up the spirits and then tethered to Morphling, I might have picked up both of those skills, because I would have stunned the one guy Morphling was fighting, and then all those spirits would just be bouncing off of that guy and Pudge. So just being aware of that and like setting up prior to relocating or prior to tethering can be a huge difference whenever you tether. Like, see how those spirits are closed as opposed to that medium range starter distance. Being able to close your spirits up prior to relocation can be all the difference between getting a kill and not getting a kill. Where closing them up before you do a tether can be the difference between getting a kill or having somebody teleport out, or you know, go invisible or do something that lets them survive the gank. So just be aware of that whenever you're playing Wisp. Yeah, I was trying to tether up and regen. And generally, like, the smartest thing to do, if I actually didn't need the regen, so it didn't matter there, but it's also good to, if you're low on health, you probably want to always put the heal in yourself. So if they do break the tether, then you know, tough shit. They lose the heal. You know, they should have stayed tethered to you, but you definitely get your heal. So make sure you're doing that, unless you're in a situation where it's like a carry or something like that. But yeah, tether broke off, unfortunately. So, oh no, it stayed on.
You did your best.
Unfortunately, it didn't. We didn't have quite enough time to win that team fight in there, but it did port us both out because the tether stayed. That's one of those situations that's like, you know, it's a good thing that he stayed tethered, because we were able to go in, do some fighting, pick up some people, but unfortunately, you know, if he had stayed, if the tether had broken, he would probably ended up feeding. So it's a good thing that he kept the tether on. I just love this guy's Aya's playstyle. Now I'm sticking up here because I'm trying to, yeah, there's an illustration of me coming from the high ground. I was hoping somebody would be in between us so that I could stun them, but unfortunately they weren't. And yeah, he ended up moving up there to dodge the hook, but it's funny, actually me tethering to him is probably what saved his life there, because the actual extra movement speed actually allowed him to move out of the range of the sun strike.
The phantom flies.
I just like the style of play because he has so many little things to think about and so many little tricks that he can do as Wisp. He's just he's definitely a very unique and fun hero once you learn the ins and outs of him.
Tower could use a little help. Them dire buildings are tough as nails for now.
He's definitely somebody I would say that needs to see more play, but he likely doesn't, simply because of the necessity of being one of those heroes that you need to have a good team with you to play.
Trouble brewing at Radiant's bottom tower. Dire's mid-rags didn't make it. Radiant's bottom tower seen better days.
No. I don't know, I didn't move up for the mini stun. Oh, actually we got her just there.
Dire's mid tower won't last much longer.
But Relocate saved my bacon there. But he takes me out.
Radiant's top tower's in bad shape.
Would have been nice if the Morphling actually put a stun on him, but
Radiant's top tower's hurting.
or the sniper, since he can mini stun. But unfortunately, they weren't
Radiant's top tower's in
Johnny on
bad
the spot with that. Let's just fast forward through this death.
shape. Radiant's top tower's taking hits.
Now I broke off from him just because I thought he was more useful at that area to help the team, and then I tethered on to Morphling and I brought him bot to continue pushing the lane so he could get some farm. So that's an illustration of the fact that you can swap people as you're tethering. You know, I tethered in with Sniper, dropped him off, and then retethered to Morphling and brought him back. Now he hit that person with the Ethereal Blade so he could do the Morphling shotgun, but unfortunately he missed it, or I think that's his, that's not his replicate, because he can't replicate himself. I don't know what happened there. I think he replicated her, and then he swapped. That's what he did to try to get closer to her. It would be nice if he could replicate himself. I don't understand why he can't replicate himself. I'm speaking of Morphling, by the way. But it doesn't really make sense to me. It would be nice if he could. I think it would add a little bit of flavor to the hero. Because then it's like, okay, there's two Morphlings, which one's the real one? Who would have that same confusion that... yeah, we're able to stun him even though he's levitated. Probably if I timed that a little bit better, he would have had less time to escape. I should have waited until the levitate dropped and then mini stunned him. and we could have probably picked him off.
Dire just couldn't save that bottom tower.
Yeah.
Dire's bottom
And that's
ranks
another
got
example
no
of people not coming with when you're tethered, and that could have actually resulted in a kill there on Pudge easily.
Dire's bottom ranks got problems. Radiant's top tower's in bad shape.
And now Pudge
Farewell to the Dire's bottom
Killing
barracks.
spree. Doubloon.
picks off Rubric, unfortunately.
Don't run off.
Fortunately, I got blocked by the creep, so
Dire's
the
mid
tether
tower's
broke.
nothing now. Dire's mid tower's having
And I picked up a
rags. Didn't make it.
Lincoln Sphere because of Invoker's ulti and also some of the other the stuns from Lion and things. I think it's a decent pickup for
Dire's mid tower could use a little help.
IO. You know, obviously a mechanism would probably be nice. You know, getting some support items, possibly even a Yule's or a sheep stick. Those are nice things as well. Anything that adds some utility to the team or helps basically give you another stun or another stun, yeah. Because you do have the tether stun. Or possibly even a silence from a either a sheep stick or a silence from an orchid.
Illusion.
All of those things would be good. It just depends on how much kills you're getting. You know, I mean, you can treat him as a support, but in my opinion, he's more of a ganker than a support. So I build him more, you know, towards the ganking elements of things as opposed to just straight up support, which I think is one of the unique things about him. It really just depends on the needs of the team. I can't remember exactly why I relocated there. I think it might have been because I thought somebody was in there and I just wanted to surprise them. I just wasn't sure. Knew there was people on the high ground, but I didn't know how many, so I didn't want to exactly put myself in a bad position. I'm just kind of just putting the spirits up, so they got to run through them. They got to take damage if they want to come on us. I think at this point we could have just won the game, but I was still trying to take out this Invoker. Unfortunately, Morphling just decided to farm instead of stunning the Invoker, so we could have... If he would have just stunned him for a brief second, I could have tethered across him, and then we could have probably picked him up, but then... He chose not to. The Invoker got away, and then the Invoker ended up killing me, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. At this time, I'm looking at, I think it's Teal up there, and I was trying to get close enough to tether, but then she got frogged, or P got frogged. I was just trying to find something. I could have tethered onto a creep. That's what I was trying to do, to tether onto them and cross over and get pulled away. I should have clicked on one that was further away, and it could have like pulled me across them, stunned them for a few seconds, and given me more time to try to escape. And if I could have made it into some trees or something, I could have tried to relocate back to base. Even though it would have pulled me back to that original location, getting full health would have then allowed me to have more of a chance. And I could have always tethered onto somebody that was in the fountain too and brought them with me. But regardless, we basically came back from a deficit and we're pushing on and taking them out. Again, it's very easy to feed with Wisp. So, I mean, I think I'm doing pretty good as far as with the ganks and everything. But unfortunately, you know, it's so easy to die with him because he doesn't really have anything if he's not attached to somebody. He's such a team dependent hero that it's something that you probably see him a lot more in captain's mode than you're ever going to see him in the game. Another example of tether breaking and me getting ported into a bad situation. And that's the main reason why you don't see him a lot in pubs. Because if somebody breaks the tether, they're basically killing you. Because you poured in and all you have is Wisp to protect you. Unless you have built, say, something like a Yule Scepter that can offer you some survivability. Maybe a Yule's in conjunction with a Blink Dagger, or, you know, in my case I have a Lincoln Spear to give me something. Yeah. You can see how the Lincoln's there, it saved me from his ulti. Got a stun on him. Fortunately, I think I'm going to die there. Yeah. But my sacrifice, I think, allows these guys to escape. Or maybe not. I don't know. I was hoping it would. Oh, no. She might get caught. Oh. That was hilarious. Pudge working against his own team there. Let me just fast forward through this.
Radiant's toughened up their
I think at this point, and again, this is another instance of my team getting me killed, but I tried to port Morphling just right on top of their, you know, I should have known enough, like at this point, that this guy's an idiot, but I was trying to port him right onto their Ancient so that he could have switched to Agility and we could have killed the Ancient, which he could have done easily. There are a few people there, but the two of us could have done quite a bit of damage to it, but in that time. And it's also like what that's doing is it's forcing people to kind of just, you know, try to tank up and stand around the Ancient as opposed to kind of push the lanes. But he didn't come with me. You know, not a big deal. But it was another situation that could have potentially got me killed unnecessarily. Let's see if the linking's being useful here for me. Because people love going on Wisp. You see another instance of the Lincoln's being useful. Because Wisp is just a target of opportunity. It's very much like Sniper. He's squishy, people know it, they're going to come on you. They don't like being tethered, they don't like being mini-stunned. And if they can go on you, they will. So having something that you can use to either tank up or stun them is almost a must. Now I should have probably went back and tethered onto Enchantress and I might have been able to save her. But I stuck with my my boy Rubik here. Because I definitely knew I could, we could get out of it.
It's sundown for the Dyer's Ancient. They're gonna need a miracle. Might be over for the Dyer's Ancient.
Just fast forward a bit.
Where are you going?
And was able to stun her there.
Heal us. Character assassin.
Didn't you see me waiting?
It's heating up at the dire side,
Yeah.
ancient.
Did it again. Came in.
Small. I'll do the same for you.
And was able to snatch him up and pull him out. Even though the tether got broke.
Trouble brewing at Dire's top rags. Nothing left of Dire's top rat.
So able to catch him with the mini stun.
Taken hiding.
The Dire's ancient is getting whooped. Is this it? Might be over for the Dire's ancient. Too bad for them. That's a weak for Radiant.
And there you go. That's a good example of how you would play Wisp. It can be extremely effective as a ganker. He can be a support, he can be a ganker. I played him as a ganker that game. I mean, obviously you can play him as more of a support and buy wards and all that nonsense, but I'm of a mind that he's such a good ganker. You know, he's just like, he's the anti-ward hero with his ability to just appear on top of people. So why go ahead and waste money on wards and things like that when you can build him up and have him be a very effective lane ganker, you know, in conjunction with, say, another ganker style hero or somebody that is generally played as support like Rubik. I think he can be played in an effective, you know, generally, like if you're playing captain's mode, you're gonna have a tri lane, but if you were gonna do a split lane and have a 2 top 2 bot, then I think he's a really good ganker in those scenarios. As long as you have, again, somebody that can play the stunner role like Rubik did in this game, you can set up quite a few kills. Made a few mistakes there, definitely fed a little bit, but I think overall I was able to do quite a few assists, and I think that the IO play was quite decent. You know, obviously there were quite a few mistakes that were made by my teammates that broke the tether, that led to me having higher deaths than normal. But yeah, there you go. That's a IO game. I'll probably try to upload another one once I get a better showing. But again, it's very difficult with the hero. I might end up touching touching on the hero again once I get into captain's mode. I don't know if I'm gonna end up finding another tournament team or not. I used to play with a tournament team, but I'll see if I can get one. It just depends on how often I have to play Dota. But there you go. That's a you know, middle of the road showing for IO. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you picked up all the basic principles from that. And I hope you enjoyed. As always, like, thumbs, sub, retweet, And this is 1Bit signing off. Later.